So I'm seeing that maybe in the next month, if we start to see these things happen, Trump is going to come in, and if he stops all these things, and then relating to Israel and Jerusalem itself, if the number 7 years is connected to that in the news, headlines, we're in the 70th week. Literally, if we take that 2 days seriously, and if we believe that Jesus was cut off on the cross around 32 or 33 plus 2,000 years, that's, like you said, you think that we're on top of something here. The Bible says we're on top of something here. So when it comes to the timeline of events, what I'm really looking at right now, I'm looking at the peace agreement, because we're not in a time period right now where definitive Bible verses are being fulfilled. It literally starts with Daniel 9:27. We left off with Daniel 9:26. Daniel 9:26 is a 40-year verse. I break it up into 2 different parts. Let me actually go there because this is kind of important. So let me go to Daniel 9. This is literally like the crux of the whole thing, what everybody should be sort of like having on their mind as far as I'm concerned. So the prophecy, when Daniel is in Babylon, they had just been punished for 70 years, and they were taken out of their city, and they were going to have to go back and rebuild it. The first temple had been destroyed, and they were punished for not letting the land rest every year, or every 7 years. And so they were punished for 77s. And so then Gabriel tells Daniel, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people, the Israelites, and upon thy holy city. So this is literally not about America. It's not about any other nation. This is about Jerusalem and the people of God's promises, whom he's talking to here, Daniel. And he says that 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression, Israel's transgression against their God, which is why they were just punished in Babylon for 70 years. To make an end of sins, their sins, and to make reconciliation for their iniquities, and to bring in everlasting righteousness. And what that means is that they're going to be resurrected from the dead. In Ezekiel 37, it talks about the valley of dry bones. The whole house of Israel is resurrected from the dead. And eventually they're going to be judged as sheep and goats. And the sheep are going to be kings and priests for 1,000 years, which is Exodus. This is the promise from Exodus 19:5 and 6. Which it says that you'll be a peculiar people unto me, and above all people, and that's for Israel. So everlasting righteousness means immortality, because you can't be everlastingly righteous in a mortal body. And to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy, that means that Jesus Christ will be anointed as the King of Israel. And so that's going to happen after 70 weeks. A week is 7 years in this context, not 7 days. There's going to be a commandment to restore Jerusalem, and then Jesus would come into Jerusalem and be cut off. I was just trying to get to this verse here, Daniel 9:26, because I want to show you it's in 2 parts. That there's a colon right here, and it says after 62 weeks, which is also added to a previous 7, which is 69 weeks of years, which is 483 years, that Jesus would be cut off, but not for himself, because he died for their iniquities. And then it says this is basically Daniel 9:26a up here, and that was in about 32 AD, let's just call it that. And then this right here is 40 years later. This is 70 AD. This is the destruction of Jerusalem. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city. So that's not Israelites. Up here, it says that up here, this is the Israelite people. Up here, that's one people. Those are the Israelites. And what they did is they restore and rebuild Jerusalem. That's the Israelites. And you have another people down here, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city. So that's not Israelites. Some people try to make this prince Jesus, but it's not, because it says that the people of the prince that shall come, these are destroying people, because these are building people up here. These people, they restore and build, and then you have the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood. And that's an invasion of men. Jerusalem was surrounded and then overtaken And the end of the war, desolations are determined. So basically what happened is Jerusalem became desolate. So this right here is like 32 AD. And this actually, if you look it up, it was actually 7 years it happened. It wasn't exactly 70 AD. I mean, they say that the temple was destroyed in 70, but it actually lasted from about 67 to 72 or 73 in there, the whole thing. It takes time. So this is a 40-year verse, basically. Like, let's say 32 to 72 in here. But we live in the white space between this verse and this verse. And so this is what I'm looking for. And that's this prince up here, which is not the Messiah, that's the destroying. He's of the destroyers. He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And I look at that, LA, as being what Trump is doing right now. He's gathering nations. He's literally going to all these different wars and skirmishes, and there's a lot going on that we don't even know about because it's not in our news. He was just, like, last week, I think he like completed a peace deal with Azerbaijan and who they were fighting. Yeah. And so he's going individually to these different nations saying, okay, stop fighting, let's make a deal. You guys stop fighting, let's make a deal. You guys stop fighting, let's make a deal. So he's going on an individual basis to all these different wars, and he's stopping them. The big one's going to be Russia and Ukraine, which he didn't quite get that done yesterday, but that's fine because we have like a month, like literally, it kind of could work just fine towards going into the fall. And so that's what I'm really looking at that, right? I'm not looking at supernatural events. I'm looking at what's written, and I'm looking at, this is politics, is what this is. And that, I think, is what we're looking at. I think Trump really, he's the guy who wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. It's what he does. He makes deals. And he's literally the guy, I think. That doesn't mean that he's the prince that shall come. He's not like making... he's getting everyone together, but he doesn't even, like America, him being the leader of America, I don't believe he doesn't need to be involved in the covenant itself because he's not a threat to anybody. He's not in any wars. He's getting people who are in wars to stop it, and that's a covenant. Israel's not involved, I don't think, just yet, but they just said that they're going to dominate Gaza, so we might even see in the next month Israel at war again. Anyway, so I'm seeing that maybe in the next month, if we start to see these things happen, Trump is going to come in, and if he stops all these things, and then relating to Israel and Jerusalem itself, if the number 7 years is connected to that in the news, headlines, we're in the 70th week. And that's what I'm looking at right there. Great question. The way that I look at it, no, I don't believe that Trump is in the Bible. I don't think he's any of the characters in the Bible. It's just not his character. We've seen his character. He's a good man. He's highly empathetic. He's not narcissistic, sociopathic, or pathological. I see him as being a good man that literally hates bloodshed. He's trying to stop killing and death. That's just been his character. We've seen him. He's been in our lives, all our lives. He's had shows on TV. We know this man. He's not a mystery. A lot of there's Trump derangement syndrome out there, absolutely. But that's people who are just not really looking at things clearly. I think Trump is the guy because when we have pathological, like psychopaths as leaders, like some of our past presidents, there's no way that no one's going to make this deal. Daniel 9:27 cannot happen with all these psychopaths running the nation. So Trump is this outsider that comes in that I believe that God is using to forward the agenda to get the Daniel 9 prophecies into that final verse. And the prince that shall come, who is of the people of who destroyed Jerusalem. It was the Romans under Titus. So it says that the prince that shall come, or the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Okay, so that maybe like revive Roman Empire type situation. This person, I believe, is Nimrod, is like actually who I think he is. That's the rider on the white horse. He has a bow. And I think that bow actually, a lot of people have mentioned he's got a bow, but he doesn't have any arrows. But if I use the rule of first mention talking about the bow, what the bow is, You go back to the rainbow of Noah, which was what? A covenant of peace. I will not destroy the earth with water anymore. That's the first mention of rainbow. So that's what I think the rider on the white horse is he's part of the covenant. It doesn't mean that, and he confirms it with many nations, but eventually he breaks it because, it's a man-made peace and it's not going to last. The Prince of Peace is the only one that's going to make a lasting peace. This is basically the whole 70 weeks prophecy, and this is what I wanted to show you about these verses. I literally believe what these verses say. Up there in the top left, it's basically Jesus talking through Hosea, and he says, I will go and return to my place until they, the Israelites, acknowledge their offense, synagogue of Satan really, and seek my face. In their affliction they will seek me early. The affliction is what's called the tribulation period. Returning to my place, he's seated at the right hand of the Father. And if you look at the context of Hosea 5, like 14, it's basically he's the lion of the tribe of Judah. And so that's who's talking here. Then we go to flip just a couple more verses, and it says, after, Hosea now is talking, and he says, after 2 days, he will revive us. Revival is resurrection from the dead, which is the valley of dry bones, and the resurrection of Israel. In the third, so you got 2 days here, and then it says, in the third day, he will raise us up. And that has to do with he's going to raise them up. You're going to be a people above all peoples. And that's the promise in Exodus 19, 5 and 6. So revival means resurrection. Raise us up means they're going to be kings and priests. And then it says, and we shall live in his sight. So the 2 days and the third day are what we're looking at here. So the only way to understand that, the Bible interprets itself. So we go over to Peter, and Peter says, but beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that 1 day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as 1 day, 2 Peter 3:8. So that 2 days is 2,000 years. So if this was around 32, 33 AD, this is the arrow going up. I will return to my place. I will go and return to my place until they acknowledge their offense. The offense was crucify, crucify, crucify. And they killed an innocent man. In their affliction, they will seek me early. Okay, the affliction is here. It's the second half of the 70th week. It's also another word for affliction is tribulation. So, but the 2 days that he's saying is 2,000 years. And if we look at that exactly, LA, and I don't see why it wouldn't be exactly, you got 32 to 33 AD plus 2,000 is what? 32 to 33, 32, 23. You back that off 7 years, where are you? Right now. Right now. So I've got a peace treaty here. I've got a reason for the peace treaty is war. And then we go into there's two very different halves of this 70th week. Also right here is that 40-year verse, Daniel 9:26. This is when he was cut off. And then the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. That was a 40-year window in there. But then when we zoom in here, you've got, Paul talked about, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction shall come. And so the peace and safety is a 3.5-year window. The peace will last. It's supposed to last 7 years, but it only lasts 3.5 years. And in this time period, Moses and Elijah shall be preaching to the Israelites to basically get them to have faith in them so that they can endure to the end of this part. And the temple has to be rebuilt, and I know that you're well aware of the Temple Institute and everything that they're ready to do, but that temple has to be built because Paul says that the man of sin, the son of perdition, has to go into the temple and proclaim himself to be God here. So all of this is what's on the table, LA, and literally, if we take that 2 days seriously, and if we believe that Jesus was cut off on the cross around 32 or 33 plus 2,000 years, that's... like you said, you think that we're on top of something here. The Bible says we're on top of something here.